There comes a point in every person's life when the walls seem to close in, when every effort feels wasted and failure stands tall before them. But in truth, failure is not the enemy, it is the silent teacher that reveals the real path forward. Success never whispers its lessons, it only celebrates the outcome. Failure, on the other hand, speaks loudly in the language of humility, patience and self-awareness. It breaks the illusion of perfection and teaches us who we truly are when the world turns away. Failure strips away the ego and reveals the truth of who we are. When everything goes right, we often start believing that life is under our control, that success is our doing alone. But the moment failure arrives, that illusion shatters. It humbles us, teaches us that the universe does not bend to our will and forces us to see life beyond pride. It makes us question our motives, our actions, and the way we perceive ourselves. Through this breaking, we gain clarity, and that clarity becomes the foundation of true strength. It builds an inner toughness that no comfort can offer. Success makes people soft, but failure sharpens the mind and strengthens the spirit. Each time we fall, something inside us learns to rise differently, more aware, more alert, and less afraid. The pain of defeat molds courage that cannot be borrowed or taught. It turns uncertainty into discipline and frustration into focus. Every setback becomes a test, and those who endure it grow beyond what they ever thought possible. Failure also redefines success itself. It teaches that real achievement is not measured by applause or recognition, but by the depth of one's growth and the steadiness of one's peace. When you fail and rise again, you no longer chase validation, you chase meaning. You begin to act from understanding, not from fear. In that moment, success is no longer something to reach, it becomes something you embody in your attitude toward life. Each failure fuels innovation and awareness. When something doesn't work, the mind begins to think differently, exploring paths that would otherwise remain unseen. Great ideas and discoveries are born not from perfection, but from persistence through repeated mistakes. Every failed attempt becomes a doorway to insight, revealing what does not work so we can find what does. This process purifies intention, burning away impatience and leaving only determination and clarity behind. ChatGPT said failure builds an inner strength that no success can ever create. When everything collapses and the ground beneath your feet disappears, that is when your true power begins to rise. It tears away every false sense of control and demands that you rebuild yourself from within. It teaches you how to survive without applause, how to move forward without guarantees, and how to fight when everything inside you wants to give up. The strength that comes from such moments is raw, real and unshakable. It becomes the silent armor that carries you through the storms of life. When you succeed, comfort begins to grow around you like a warm blanket. You start to believe that things will always work in your favor, that the path ahead will remain smooth. But comfort is a slow poison that kills the hunger to improve. Failure breaks that illusion. It shakes you awake, reminding you that progress does not come from ease, but from resistance. It is through discomfort that you learn endurance, and through disappointment that you learn direction. Failure does not destroy you, it rebuilds you with stronger foundations. Each fall becomes a lesson in resilience. The pain of defeat is sharp, but it teaches discipline like nothing else can. Every time you rise from failure, a new layer of strength forms within you. You become less affected by opinions, less shaken by uncertainty, and more aware of your own capacity to endure. The courage to start again after being broken is not ordinary, it is a sacred power that only failure can gift. Those who have tasted defeat and still stand are the ones who truly know what strength means. Failure redefines the meaning of success in a way that comfort never can. When everything goes wrong despite your best efforts, you are forced to confront the emptiness behind external rewards. You begin to see that applause fades quickly and recognition does not heal the heart. True success is no longer about being seen or celebrated. It becomes about understanding your own depth. When failure crushes your expectations, it also opens the door to something deeper, something far more real than approval or praise. It teaches you that success is not what others give you, but what you build quietly within yourself. The journey through failure strips away the illusions that success often hides behind. It forces you to ask hard questions. Why are you doing what you do and for whom? When the outer validation disappears, the inner truth stands naked. You begin to work not for recognition but for purpose. This shift transforms the entire experience of achievement. You no longer chase trophies, you chase growth. The hunger to appear successful turns into the hunger to become capable, disciplined and wise. Failure exposes the shallowness of results that lack meaning. It reveals that without inner mastery, no amount of accomplishment can satisfy you. You start to value the process more than the outcome, because the process is where your strength is built. You learn to respect effort even when it doesn't bring victory. That understanding is what separates those who merely succeed from those who evolve. The real victory is not over the world but over your own limitations. Once you have fallen and stood again, success loses its glitter but gains its truth. You no longer measure progress by comparison or competition. You measure it by your ability to stay calm in chaos, to keep faith when results fail, and to continue moving when the path feels endless. Success stops being a destination and becomes a way of living with integrity, clarity and balance. Failure teaches you that peace is not the reward of achievement but the foundation of it. Failure awakens awareness in ways that comfort never can. When life moves smoothly, the mind becomes dull and careless, assuming that things will always go as planned. But the moment failure strikes, it cuts through that illusion and forces awareness to rise. You begin to see how fragile control truly is and how much of life happens beyond your command. It is in this confrontation with loss that consciousness sharpens. You stop drifting through life on assumptions and start living with a deeper sense of attention. When failure tears apart the comfort you once depended on, you begin to observe everything with greater clarity. The noise of success fades, and what remains is the raw reality of effort, patience and truth. This awareness changes how you think, how you act, and how you respond to challenges. You start noticing what truly deserves your energy and what merely drains it. Failure teaches the art of presence, of being alert, awake, and honest in every moment, even when the outcome is uncertain. Through this heightened awareness, illusions fall away one by one. You see how often you were guided by fear, pride, or desire for validation. Failure exposes these hidden motives and replaces them with authenticity. You stop pretending to be strong and begin to understand what real strength feels like. The awareness that arises from failure does not just change your goals, it changes your entire perception of life. You start to move with greater precision and purpose, not out of desperation but out of understanding. This awakening also brings humility. Once you fail, you realize that knowledge and control are limited and life is far greater than your plans. You learn to observe more and react less. You begin to listen deeply to yourself, to others, and to life itself. Awareness becomes your guide, not emotion or impulse. You stop being carried by the chaos of circumstances and start seeing patterns, lessons, and directions that were invisible before. Failure opens your eyes to life's depth and makes you more conscious of every decision, every thought and every action. Failure fuels innovation because it forces the mind to think beyond limits. When everything works smoothly, creativity remains asleep, confined within comfort and repetition. But the moment something breaks, the human mind awakens with urgency. It starts searching for new answers, exploring possibilities that were never considered before. Every failure becomes a challenge that demands imagination, adaptation, and courage. It ignites a fire that pushes you to find what others have not yet seen. Without failure shaking the ground beneath you, the desire to invent and evolve would never be born. When plans collapse and results fall short, the thinking process shifts from routine to exploration. You begin to see gaps, flaws, and hidden opportunities that success often hides. Failure compels you to analyze, question, and rebuild with greater wisdom. It strips away assumptions and exposes what truly works and what only seemed to work. Each attempt that fails refines your understanding of the problem, bringing you closer to the right solution. It transforms stubbornness into strategy and confusion into clarity. Innovation is never born from comfort, it is born from pressure. The discomfort of failure acts as a spark that drives persistence and reinvention. Those who fear failure remain trapped in imitation, but those who face it with courage create something original. The mind expands when it has no choice but to find a new path. Failure provides that push. It stretches your capacity to think differently, to act boldly, and to create meaning out of mess. Without the friction of failure, there can be no movement toward greatness. Failure also builds emotional endurance, which is essential for innovation. The process of experimenting, falling short, and trying again strengthens patience and resilience. It teaches you not to be crushed by defeat, but to learn from it. The emotional strength gained from failure gives the courage to take risks that others avoid. It makes you fearless in your pursuit of progress because you no longer see mistakes as endings but as vital steps in evolution. Every error becomes a teacher and every disappointment becomes a stepping stone. Failure teaches detachment in a way that nothing else can. When everything you planned collapses, despite your dedication, you are forced to see that life does not always bend to effort. You begin to realize that the result is never fully in your control, no matter how much passion you pour into your work. This realization cuts deeply, but it frees you. You stop attaching your worth to outcomes and start valuing the purity of your actions. Failure teaches that your effort, honesty, and consistency define you far more than any result ever could. When a person ties their happiness to success, disappointment becomes inevitable. But failure breaks this dependence. It shows you the danger of living for results and the peace that comes when you act without obsession over rewards. You begin to work with focus but not attachment, with dedication but not desperation. Detachment does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop suffering over what is beyond your control. It teaches you to give your best and remain calm, whether the outcome favors you or not. This detachment builds an inner balance that success often destroys. When you succeed, it is easy to become enslaved by the fear of losing what you gained. But when you fail and survive, you learn that you can live without constant validation. You realize that peace is not in winning, but in staying centered, even when things fall apart. The storms of life still come, but they no longer shake you the same way. You stop clinging to control and start trusting the process of growth itself. Failure strips away the layers of ego that crave recognition and praise. It reminds you that nothing external can define your inner worth. The more detached you become, the more powerful your actions grow because they are no longer burdened by fear or greed. You act because it is right, not because it guarantees success. This freedom brings clarity and precision. Detachment refines the mind, allowing it to focus on the present moment instead of being trapped between regret and expectation. Failure purifies desire by burning away everything that is false within you. When success comes too easily, it often feeds the ego more than the soul. It makes you chase applause, status and validation instead of meaning. But when failure hits, all those shallow motives crumble. You are forced to look within and question what you truly want. The noise of ambition fades and what remains is a quieter, clearer intention. It is no longer about proving something to the world, but about fulfilling something deep within yourself. Through failure, the heart undergoes cleansing. Every disappointment cuts through illusion, removing the layers of pride and pretense that blind your purpose. The pain exposes the difference between desire and truth. You realize how often you were chasing things that had no real value, things that only satisfied the surface. Failure burns those desires until only sincerity remains. What survives that fire is pure will, a calm, focused drive that seeks not fame or reward, but fulfillment of purpose. This purification brings a deep transformation. You stop running after temporary pleasures and start moving toward lasting meaning. Failure teaches patience, persistence and humility. It silences the desperate urge to reach the top quickly and replaces it with steady discipline. The purified desire no longer wavers with circumstances, it becomes like a flame that burns steadily even in the wind. It no longer seeks external validation, but thrives on inner conviction. Once your desire is purified, your actions gain tremendous power. They are no longer scattered by greed or fear, they become direct, precise and rooted in clarity. You stop wasting energy on distraction and focus entirely on what truly matters. Your motivation shifts from ego to purpose, and that shift changes everything. It gives your effort depth, your struggle meaning, and your journey strength. This clarity of desire transforms failure itself into fuel. Failure develops compassion in a way that comfort never could. When you fall, when you lose what you believed was certain, you begin to understand the silent pain others carry. The arrogance of quick judgment disappears because you have now walked through the same storm. Failure humbles the heart, softens the voice, and opens the eyes to human fragility. You stop measuring people by their achievements and start seeing the courage it takes just to keep going. In the ashes of your own struggle, empathy is born, not as an idea but as a living truth. When you face defeat, the world's noise fades and you begin to hear the quiet suffering that surrounds you. You understand how heavy invisible burdens can be and how much strength it takes to rise each day despite them. The heart that has failed becomes more patient, less demanding and more forgiving. You stop asking why people fall short and start asking how they endure. This shift in perception builds a depth of humanity that success alone can never provide. Failure dismantles the illusion of superiority. When you have been broken, you no longer stand above others, you stand among them. You recognize that everyone fights battles unseen, that every smile may hide exhaustion. Compassion grows not from sympathy, but from shared struggle. You begin to see that weakness is not disgrace, it is part of being alive. The pain that once felt isolating becomes the very thread that connects you to others. Failure creates focus by stripping away distractions and forcing you to confront what truly matters. When everything collapses, the unnecessary falls away, leaving only what is essential. You begin to see clearly where your energy was wasted and where it must now be directed. The noise of comfort disappears and what remains is a sharp sense of purpose. In that clarity, focus is born, not the shallow kind that lasts a moment, but the steady kind that endures through struggle. Failure teaches you to give your full attention to the core of your purpose and nothing else. When success comes easily, the mind becomes scattered. It chases too many things at once, believing it can do everything and lose nothing. But when failure strikes, it forces you to choose. You begin to prioritize not by desire but by necessity. It sharpens your awareness, teaching you the discipline of saying no to what weakens you. Focus emerges when the mind is freed from confusion and guided by experience. Failure becomes the refining fire that melts away the excess, leaving behind only pure determination. Through failure, distractions lose their hold. The illusions that once seemed important, approval, comparison, validation, no longer carry power. You stop chasing applause and start chasing excellence. You learn to silence the outer world and listen to the demands of your inner calling. This focus is not driven by ambition but by understanding. It is calm, centered and immovable. It allows you to act with precision, knowing that your energy is no longer divided between things that do not matter. Failure leads to mastery because it forces you to repeat, refine and rebuild until precision becomes natural. Every mistake exposes the weak points that success hides. Each failed attempt reveals a gap in skill or understanding, and through repetition, those gaps begin to close. Mastery is never born from luck or comfort, it is shaped in the constant grind of falling, learning and rising again. Failure transforms effort into experience and experience into expertise. It turns uncertainty into instinct and hesitation into confidence. The process of mastery is never smooth. It demands endurance, not enthusiasm. Failure tests whether your desire to improve is real or only a wish. Those who give up after defeat were only chasing results, not mastery. But those who return to the task again and again, no matter how many times they fall, begin to build a strength that cannot be broken. The constant cycle of trying, failing and correcting develops depth, precision and control. Each repetition becomes a form of sharpening, polishing the skill until it becomes a part of who you are. Every failure is not the end of the road, it is the road itself. The people who rise are not the ones who never fall, but those who never let their fall define them. Life doesn't demand perfection, it demands persistence. Embrace failure not as a wound, but as wisdom carved into your being. For only through the cracks in your journey does the true light of success begin to shine.